I don't know, 38 4-stars, 6 5-stars over the next 3 weekends. That should be happy for anyone to hear. What Riley is selling is development. You're hearing it in a lot of these kids' comments. If anyone's seen, if you're on Twitter or Instagram and you're seeing the quality, I mean, it's almost comical. I'm not going to crap on any schools, Georgia, and their videos compared to USC's. It's literally go on and take a look at what they're doing. And you might say, oh, that's stupid, it's fluff, it's whatever. It's what these kids love. And in an age of NIL, when you show the production quality, what USC does and how they do it and the professionalism, the detail in which they promote these kids, it's just touching the surface to these kids of what we're going to be able to do with you in LA when you come to our school. And it is full Hollywood, you guys. Even if you don't have Twitter, just make an account and go check out some of the stuff that these kids are doing, because it truly looks Hollywood. It looks like, was it Industrial Light Magic? I'm probably dating myself on that, but it's just amazing the effects that they do and everything. But the reality of it is they brought in 9 4-stars and 2 5-stars recently on this latest visit, which was a good haul. I mean, you look at a lot of times, remember the stuff, whenever you heard from one of the kids coming from these visits, you know, we'd always hear, love the sunshine. It's a great school, right? The words coming out of these kids' mouths all the time was those kind of platitudes, you know, nothing about never anything about the coaching staff. But now it is. Now you're hearing, you know, I see how I fit in the system. I know this is a place where they can develop me for the NFL. You know, I got to hang out with Ronnie Lott, you know, and Taylor Mays. I mean, you hear all these name drops and the situation they have there. And it's hard to argue. You know, it's hard to argue the difference from what we used to see to what we're seeing now. And it doesn't slow down. I mean, next week they have, next week's a big weekend where you'd have 17 4-stars and 2 5-stars coming in. One of those 5-stars is going to be Julian Lewis, and we'll talk about him, Juju Lewis. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But Matt, I mean, I'm not chasing the stars. We're talking about the top players from not just Southern California, but all over the country.
You know, one of the other things to mention, like you mentioned, the graphics and the presentation in terms of media content. That's an important piece. The other part is, you know, Annie Hansen, the director of the operations. You know, she puts on a first class, you know, LA style beachfront type party, you know, for these recruits. You know, she was tweeting the pictures, the visuals about just this great lavish, you know, setup. You know, treating the recruits like royalty. So you have that as well. But it's important, and Tim, you kind of alluded to it. I think it's just worth reiterating and kind of developing. You have, you know, the style, the Hollywood, and, you know, the first class treatment, you know, professionals in terms of creating an event, an experience, a weekend, a moment that's attractive to recruits. But those are the aesthetics. You now have some steak to go along with the sizzle. And that's that developmental piece. That's having a really serious credentialed defensive coaching staff. And so, you know, we like, it's not as though Annie Hansen and the rest of the operations department did an inferior job the past few summers. What was not there was a defensive coordinator who, you know, knew his stuff inside and out. We have a secondary coach who knows his stuff inside and out. We have just a deep, complete defensive coaching staff. And so for defensive recruits at all of the different positions, you know, they were walking into a room on these USC June recruiting weekends the past 2 years with Alex Grinch and Dante Williams, you know, lightweights in terms of actual coaching acumen, not, you know, recruiting ability. You know, Dante Williams had some skill there, but it was not supplemented with elite teaching chops, credentials, and now USC has that. And so, you know, the 2024 transfer portal, like guys who have been playing college football, like they saw the past few years that USC just wasn't serious enough about toughness, physicality, and specifically defense. And so, like, you can understand that people who have actually played college football, even with the new USC defensive staff hires, they might still be just a little bit hesitant a little bit reluctant to join this program for their what could be their senior season, their final go around. Like it just might not be the ideal setup. Like they might see that USC is beginning to make the right choices and engineer a proper transition, but to spend that one final year going in the portal from somewhere else to USC just might not feel right for them. But in marked contrast, for freshmen, incoming freshmen, high school recruits who want to start their career at USC and ideally finish it there, having these defensive coaches, having these grown-up adults who know how to teach, who know how to communicate, who know how to create a standard and an expectation of toughness, who won't put up with, amateurish behavior. Now that you have grown-ups on this staff for future recruiting classes, it makes sense that USC is finally going to not only make some gains, but cement them and sustain them. So that's the really exciting part of this June month and what USC is building for 2025, 2026, and beyond.
And so I guess I started these from earlier because they need to be hit just before we went on the air. Okay, so we're talking about the recruits, talking about the defense, talking about development, talking about everything. USC got off to a hell of a quick start, and one of the big starts was pulling Isaiah Gibson from Georgia. And right before we came on, was it Steve? I think it's Steve Whitfong. He has the Fong bomb. That's the comment right there. One of the top guys in the industry as far as recruiting and services are concerned. Is basically saying that he's now flipping back to Georgia. He's from Georgia. And that would be a hit. Again, Justice Terry is still here, and there's plenty of other guys. Really, we have a lot. If you look at our edge rushers, and I'm not, again, Isaiah Gibson, I think is the number one edge rusher in the country. So I'm not trying to say that he's not important. He'd be like a defensive end in Lynn's system. But what I am saying is you're not going to keep everybody, and you're not going to lose everyone, because then Walter Clark quickly came back with the fact that he had said this, Walter, before. We don't know what's going on now. He may or may not, but they are talking about, he was always talking about coming back out as well. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. You guys, this is recruiting. This is not for the faint of heart. Anybody who's been following recruiting for years, I will say I think it's calmed down actually a little bit with all the money involved and the way they do the early recruiting cycle. I don't think it's as crazy and up and down as has been over the years, but it is recruiting. And what a kid is telling us now, what he told us back, in March or April or May is not going to be what he's talking about in December. What he's saying in June and July might not be what he's saying in December. All that matters is where he signs in December. And quite frankly, from what we've learned, even then it's not safe. If he signs, he has spring practice, he might go back to some other school. So this stuff is so fluid at this point that really the old recruiting cycle and the letter of intent. I mean, what is a letter of intent anymore, you guys? What is the purpose of a letter of intent? Remember, we should treat these things like it was gospel truth coming from God over the fax machine. Now that thing has absolutely zero validity that I'm aware of. You guys can help me out. It just seems like you can say, hey, I'm coming to your school. Oh, spring ball didn't work out. I'm heading out, guys. I mean, really, there's not a lot to recruiting anymore.
Everything that you just said, Tim, is right on the mark. However, I would like to see somebody put metrics to that. So we've been in this recruiting / transfer portal era for about 3 years now. And I would like to see somebody put metrics to how many flips are we talking about? And I don't want the job of doing that. But I got to think somebody somewhere is tracking these commitment announcements, and then also just the transfer portal and the likelihood that somebody's going to transfer, and especially at a certain tier level of recruit. It would just be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, recruiting is one thing, and what people forget about also is there's three things you're recruiting. You're recruiting the high school kids, you're recruiting the transfer portal, and you're recruiting your own roster, and so we're going to see when do we start seeing the first general managers that, or whoever who's in charge of roster management. Probably not going to be the head coach anymore. It's probably going to be some guy who's working with the coach, the coaching staff, and the NIL. I mean, I don't know how it's all going to work,
They are out there already.